Good evening and welcome to Anime-Zing Radio here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm your host, Doug Inkler. Joining me in the co-host seat, as always, is our good friend, Angela Rose.
Hello.
Darren Starling will be joining us when he can. He is currently on a work site. He was asked by his former boss for a favor, and where his work week is booked solid, tonight's the only night he had to do it. So when he's available to join us, he will. He is listening in and will participate through messages through our Facebook chat. We also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for the latest and greatest in anime gear. Everything from pens, pencils, stationery, and officially licensed art books. Be sure to check out homecirclemedia.com today or look for them at an upcoming convention near you. We're also brought to you tonight by Casey Fox. For all of your artwork, cosplay, and photography needs, be sure to check out Casey Fox. That's KAYCIFOXX on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Again, welcome to Anime-Zing Radio. We are excited tonight because I'm getting to talk with another podcaster. We don't bring a lot of podcasters on. I probably should network with more. But we have Michael Ordway joining us, and you've got a couple of podcasts that you are associated with. So for our viewers and listeners out there, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on. It's a great opportunity. I always love talking about fandom and talking about all the things that I love, which, as you can tell from all the figures behind me, I am a huge Transformers collector. So that is my big claim to fame in the geek community. But as Doug said, yes, I am a podcaster as well. I help out with two podcasts. The Transmissions podcast, which is a Transformers like news, reviews, media, kind of a like a news of the week kind of podcast. So I help out with that. I guest host on it once a month. I do the editing for that. I used to do a lot more editing to it, but I had to at least step back a little bit, so I'm not editing like 2 shows every week. As you can imagine, that is quite a time sink. And I run my own gaming podcast. It is a Transformers live play RPG podcast. So if you're into D&D with Transformers, it is one of, if not the only, Transformers RPG podcast out there.
That's really cool. What got you interested in Transformers way back when?
I'm certainly a G1 fan, so I have been at least in the fandom to some degree ever as long as I can remember. But I think it was Beast Wars back in the mid to late 90s. It kind of pulled me back in after G1 ended. I think for like a lot of people like in my generation, that was kind of like their path through the fandom. And yeah, so I started watching Beast Wars again when it came out, started buying figures every now and again, and then just continued once new series and new media came out. Picked up new figures and just went from there. But I was kind of just a lurker in the fandom for a long period of time, where I consumed the media, I listened to stuff, bought the toys, but never really interacted with the fandom in any more meaningful way. Partly, I think, because no one around me really was that much into it or that big into it. But when I started listening to podcasts, and I picked up a couple of Transformers podcasts, one of them Transmissions, they had asked on one of their episodes, like, hey, we need someone who has some editing experience and can actually put together, podcasts and do it in a reasonable amount of time. So that was kind of like my introduction to more the fandom at large, at least more back and forth, more interactivity with the fandom.
That's cool. And I was going to ask how you got involved in doing podcasting for the Transformers. It's too distracting having 2 figures up here. Sorry, Yami, you got to go off to the side. And too many figures. I couldn't see like half of the screen. This is how the show goes. It's not going to get any better from here. But
but now that 2 of them, one's gone though, the rest of the screen's brighter. So all right, cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of neat how you're able to turn a fandom into something more, which similar to what I did with this show of being an anime fan, and anime and Transformers and nerd culture has helped so many people through difficult times in their personal lives. Having a way to give back was very important to me when I figured out that I could go from paranormal talk radio to an anime slash pop culture talk radio type deal. Was that something that helped you want to do that as well?
A little bit, but I got to jump back on what you just said a second ago. A paranormal talk show radio?
Yup.
I have been doing paranormal investigation since I was 19, so about 25 years.
Oh, now that is super interesting. That's not something that's literally no one I've ever talked to in person or virtually in person has ever done that. So that's actually super interesting.
I've helped out teams throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire, New York, and Colorado.
Oh, wow. That is quite a resume there.
And been a part of 3 teams officially.
And there's, at some point, Doug, if she's closer to you now than me, but that would be right up another friend that would be right up her alley.
Yeah, when I bring up paranormal, I usually get people going, I'm intrigued. We actually had a well-known voice actor, J. Michael Tatum, start asking me questions when he found out that I had done paranormal investigations. Which was weird. I'd be like, okay, I'm getting questioned by the guest. This is weird. Especially it being Tatum.
You're getting interviewed by the guest. That is awesome.
But you know what? To kind of get this in some semblance of a topic, controversial question time. With regards to Transformers, I gotta ask the Michael Bay movies.
Yep.
Good, bad, a disaster, ruin the fandom. The fandom decides that they don't exist. God.
So, okay, that's a complicated discussion. Personally, for me, I'm not a big fan of a lot of Michael Bay's, a lot of the Transformers movies that he did. The first one, perfectly fine summer movie, no problem at all. The rest, for me, it doesn't really work as well for me. I mean, I'm a 3D artist by trade, and I see a lot of the issues with it, and I see a lot of the problems that come up with it. But I do have to say that if the movies didn't get made and didn't earn just a buttload of money, we wouldn't be in the same position we are now for Transformers, because while I'm not going to say it was in a decline or not doing well when the movies came out, it certainly wasn't as popular as it is now. It just like any fandom, it kind of like ebbs and flows as new stuff comes in and old stuff goes out. So with the movies really did add, they injected a lot of life and a lot of new fans that would not have been a part of the fandom if the movies hadn't come out. So while for me they're not great movies, I certainly can appreciate what they did, because they did help to give that injection of new life into a fandom that really needed it, that desperately needed it at the time. And we're still riding that wave, that kind of high from the movies, because we're still getting new media, new cartoons, new comics like regularly. Whereas, even like 10 years ago, like when the movies, 2006, like right before the movies came out, Transformers was in a lull and there wasn't a ton of stuff happening with it. So yeah, it did what it needed to do. But that being said, it's no Shakespeare. It's not going to win any writing awards.
And
I think you said it best with it was a summer movie. It was a summer movie.
Yeah.
We all know what that means.
Turn your brain off, watch the special effects, have some popcorn, yeah, and you're good.
Escape life for 2 to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that you said it rejuvenated a fandom that was kind of dying, because growing up as a kid in the 80s, that's when Transformers were huge. In the 80s, early 90s. And then you didn't hear much about it. I was not, and I'll be honest, I know very little about Transformers. It was not a cartoon that I watched growing up. There was a lot of other cartoons that piqued my interest more. I'm not much of a mech person.
That's unfortunate.
But I can appreciate, the creativity and, the fandom of Transformers. It's because, like with any fandom, there are people out there that are extremely passionate about that, and that's something that you can respect. The passion you have for the Transformers franchise, the collection that you've built up over the years, being able to have the knowledge to talk about it, that's something that just stuck with you and resonates with you. We all have that one thing or a couple things that resonate with us. So it's something that's very respectable. And, I admire you for being able to take a passion and something that stuck with you for so long and be able to turn it into positive creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say that, at least in terms of the fandom, like starting up helping out with transmissions and starting up my own podcast, it was certainly out of my comfort zone. But it was something that I enjoyed. This is going to sound a little strange. I enjoyed the permanence of it. The fact that you make something and then it sticks around and it's not just ephemeral, doesn't just go away. I really enjoy like that part of it. So yeah.
And like I said, I know very little of the Transformers side of things. Most of the stuff that I know is just like I know some of the characters and things of that nature. Growing up as a kid, I had some of the figures transform into the car or the fire truck or whatever, but never really paid much attention to it. What was it about Transformers that just kind of sucked you in back with, and you were talking about Gen 1 Transformers? What was it that just kind of clicked with you?
So I think, at least for back then, it was simply that's what was on, and that's what I kind of glommed onto. Like, it just happened to be on at the right time, and then that's what was like the major thing that I enjoyed, and then I ended up watching. Because I know other people who got really into like G.I. Joe, other people got really into like He-Man, stuff like that, and a lot of times it was just like, because of their schedules, that's the big thing that they always saw. And I think that was true for me as well. And that was just, it stuck with me. But as I got older and got into the mid 90s, when Beast Wars came out and it had a little bit of a resurgence, I kind of had to think about, like, well, not intentionally think about, but like over the course of many years, I thought about, like what does draw me to this? Why do I like this? And the reason that I kind of figured for it is because I like things that are more I like things that are more than one thing at a time. It's just such a simple way of putting it, but in the end, like each character is a character in their own right and something else. And that kind of like dual nature to it, that kind of like, hey, this is one thing and another thing. That's like super exciting for me.
And welcome, Darren, to the show.
Hello.
Not dead yet.
No, because I'm still working. I can't die if I'm working.
But I saw that you finally were able to connect, so you have a little break from all the working, and you're able to pop in.
I was about to say, I've been listening this whole time. It's just that the way my stuff's set up on my phone, I try to use my earbuds, but for whatever reason, you can't use the mic and the earbuds at the same time with StreamYard, and I don't get why.
That is the downside of StreamYard, because I had the same problem doing a show from the airport.
I was kind of figuring that was what was the problem now, but my thing is, I think with corded headphones it shouldn't have mattered, but I thought it was just the fact I had wireless. Because I don't like the fact all these newer phones are wireless only.
Yeah, that's a thing. I don't remember. No, I did try with corded headphones. That was the
You
thing.
did.
And that just sucked.
So it's just something weird with StreamYard.
It's a StreamYard thing.
Normally I'd blame Blog Talk, but that's the one thing about Blog Talk. I guess that was good.
Not much of it was good, but that was... The loyal listeners who know us from Blog Talk Radio know that we had technical issues with them a lot. Things have gone a lot smoother since coming to StreamYard.
I suppose this is where we get into technology advances only so much, and then sometimes the advancements cause problems. Like, there's reasons Japan still uses the fax machine, literally.
Mm-hmm. And older cell phones.
Yep.
As technologically as advanced as they are, I think they realized very quickly what happens with a lot of this newer technology.
Yep.
Now, speaking of technology, you do a lot of editing for the podcasts. What are some of the programs that you use to help you with the editing?
Sure. Typically, I use Audition just because it's a nice multi-track audio editor. But Transmissions just had its 500th episode, and we switched on over to straight video. So we're actually using StreamYard right now for it as well. And I think we're going to be moving into something like Premiere or one of the free solutions to do it that way, because we are doing full-on video for all of our content now. It was something that we've been doing or wanting to do for a long, long time, and it was finally time to do it. But the podcast that I do myself, the gaming one, Empire of Rust, that's not video, so Audition is kind of the typical thing that I end up using for that. Yeah, pretty much. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like that goes into it. Audition, Premiere, StreamYard at this point. Yeah, plenty of sound effects, of course. But yeah.
I will say it's one thing I do miss that StreamYard doesn't have that Blog Talk did. When we left Blog Talk, I had to take down I think it was close to 60 audio files, songs, sound bites, and show IDs. And you have the hard drive that's got all that stuff on it. And
yep.
I do miss just clicking a play button and hearing, because we were very lucky throughout our 8.5 years of doing the show, and 500 episodes. Congratulations, that is huge. I have lost track of how many episodes we have done because we've switched networks 3 times, and some of the early stuff is MIA.
You said you've been doing this for 8 years?
Yeah, about 8.5 years. We started April 4th, 2014, or April 6th, 2014.
So Transmissions just hit or just about to hit its 9th anniversary, and we hit 500 episodes. So we do weekly as well on that. So you're probably pretty damn close to 500, if not there already.
Oh my god!
It depends on how many It depends on how many days you took off.
Typically, I would take off on
convention weekends.
Convention weekends that I had a long travel time. When living in Mass and doing cons in Mass, there were a lot of times that I would do the convention Sunday, come home, and still do the radio show.
Dedication right there.
And there are typically every year we take the 2 Sundays around Christmas and New Year's off. Just the holiday break, 2 weeks off, spend time with family, focus on the holidays, recharge the batteries, and focus on the next year and trying to improve the show. But I
We
would
do-
say on average we probably do between 45 and 50 shows a year, not counting
Yeah.
specials.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you're close, if not over 500 already.
Jesus.
Humbling, isn't it? You're congratulating me for 500. Well, guess what? Congratulations, you just hit 500.
And a lot of the old audio ones, that's, I suppose, that is a project where I'm gonna because I do know the bare basics of audio editing, and basically cut out the things we can't put up on YouTube
Yep.
and get stuff up there, the old stuff up there.
It's so much easier than having to do video editing. Because if someone says something dumb or stupid or just makes a mistake, you know what? Just get rid of all that. You don't have to worry about it.
You would cut out about 2/3 of my show. So about something stupid or said something stupid, yeah, that'd be about 2/3.
That would be where I cut every segue to Isekai trash. Kidding.
And cut every segue to like Attack on Titan, My
Okay,
Hero.
Here we go.
The only
I
thing
heard
that would
that.
stay would be Conception.
No.
And Darren, you had a lot of feedback on your mic, which is why I muted you. So if you had a comment on that, you would have to unmute. But
You know, the tally is now reset to 0. I think we had a good month going where that show did not get brought up.
no, it got brought to 0 on Wednesday.
I know, Mike. For the record, if you haven't heard of the anime Conception,
It's
it's
terrible.
not-
Don't watch it.
it is not. It's basically the worst of the worst.
Good to know.
And we all sat and watched the entire thing, hoping it would get better.
I only watched the pilot.
Ooh.
Okay, well, Darren, me,
You two, and Leanne.
and Casey, and a couple of our loyal listeners watched the entire thing, hoping it would get better.
I only watched the pilot when one of my friends hosted a Let's Do All the New Pilots Sunday afternoon. And that one was one afterwards we all were like, what the fuck did we just watch? And I never went back and watched the rest because I was that disturbed.
I did the same thing with the newer reboot series on Netflix. I loved the reboot series when it came out, and then I saw that, oh, hey, they did a live action sequel-esque kind of thing to this. Hey, let me try this out. It was awful from the start, and I stuck with it. And I was like, hey, this might get a little bit better. Nope.
No.
Mm-mm.
There are some dumpster fires you just can't turn away from.
Yep.
And afterwards you go, why did I watch this?
So I don't know who else here enjoyed Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
That was a good series.
I actually didn't watch Brotherhood. I watched the original that came
Okay.
out, but I have it. I just never
but
put it on.
So at one point, Netflix had a live action Full Metal Alchemist.
They still do. It's on my list.
It wasn't good. The first part was not good. The second part literally just released like a couple of weeks ago. It's bad.
Okay.
We watched the first part in hopes that it would be good. It hopes that it would be good.
So what you're saying is I should just take it off my queue and be done with it?
Yes. You're better off just watching Brotherhood.
I
Okay.
haven't seen the original. I just watched quite a bit of Brotherhood. I haven't seen the whole series, but I've seen a lot of Brotherhood.
If you're gonna do a live action, contrary to popular opinion, Cowboy Bebop is worth it.
Okay.
If you're going to do an FMA, just, and it's going to be trash, just bring Vic in to be Edward.
Oh God, no.
That would be interesting to see what a voice acting crew would do for live action.
But
Darren's got a comment. He unmuted.
yes, I see that.
I actually don't. I just figured out that my mic was muted. I'm driving. I'm not looking at my phone.
That's
You
why
got
I said
muted because of the feedback.
Probably because my phone was near my down window, because it is still 80 plus degrees with high humidity here, even though the sun has gone down.
Yeesh.
Yeah, we're
Mike, for
all
point-
over the U.S. here.
For point of reference, there it is in North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm about
makes
35
sense.
minutes from Canada in northern New York.
Oh, upstate New York. All right. Okay.
And Angie's in Boston.
Yeah, he's been in my living room.
Yep, I'm pretty local to Ange. A little further away from Boston, but still pretty close.
I used to live out there. I moved up here from East Bridgewater, so
Okay. It's nice. It's expensive, but it's
that's typical for Mass, especially that area.
yeah.
Massachusetts has two settings. East of Worcester, where everything is where the cost of living is I think final is in the top 10 highest cost of living.
Yep.
And then you've got the middle of nowhere Western Mass, where everything drops by like a third.
All
Except
reasonably
Springfield.
Except what, Doug?
Except Springfield.
Springfield, up until the casino was built, Springfield would still count.
But we're way off topic for the show tonight, aren't we?
That's normal.
That is, like I said, Michael, this is what we do. We're all over the place. So,
no worries. If I were editing this, I'd cut that part out. Don't worry.
That's why we leave it in. I think this is what people tune in for. Okay, what kind of side trip are we going?
And then there's...
How long is it going to take one of us to break each other?
Me threatening to murder someone? Never.
I think it's surprising that we've gone this long and you haven't done that yet.
Well, she's been part of the instigation.
So this is the craziness. That's Anime-Zing Radio. We do this on a weekly basis, sometimes bi-weekly, because we've started up doing more stuff on Wednesday nights as well.
That's not bi-weekly. Bi-weekly would be every other week.
Twice a week. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, you're not in my industry. You can't be speaking my language and know what you're talking about.
I don't even know what I'm talking about in my industry.
And the linguist in me is just annoyed that just happened.
You're welcome.
Are you annoyed it happened, or are you annoyed that you weren't the one that pointed out?
No, I was just gonna let it go. But
sorry, but as someone who sticks to weekly, bi-weekly, on call, or monthly, or try the one, I think I have tri-weekly.
But do you have very weekly?
It's in my line of work, so it's ingrained in my system. That
is fair.
But getting back on topic,
I'm actually curious. The role-playing system for Transformers, is it D20 based? Is it a different system, a different kind of system entirely?
So, okay, that's actually kind of a little bit of an involved story. So we started the gaming podcast, Empire of Rust, about 2.5 years ago or so. I think it was January of 2020, may have been 2019. Either way, it was 2 to 3 years ago. At that time, there was no official Transformers RPG rule set out at all. It didn't exist. There was a couple of third-party supplements that could be used for that. There was something that Fantasy Flight put out called Mechamorphosis, which was kind of like it. It was it was a very, well, in my opinion, a very clunky kind of like system to it, a very clunky written system.
That sounds
Uh,
like Fantasy Flight. I have
Shit.
my own opinions about what Fantasy Flight has done to other properties, so and that has come up before.
That's fair.
So
But
I'm not surprised that this is a thing.
but in the end, like it was a somewhat, it was a system that could work for playing, just say, like a very cartoon-esque kind of game. So if you wanted to like relive some of like some of the stuff from like the old cartoon, perfectly valid way of doing it. If you want to do some Beast Wars stuff, perfectly valid way, no problems. But when me and my gaming group were looking at it, there was not. It just wasn't really as robust as we wanted. So what we ended up doing is we actually took Starfinder, the Paizo's sci-fi campaign in sci-fi rule set. We mixed that with Metamorphosis and added a bunch of like homebrew stuff, and we actually wrote our own rule set for this. And it's gone through like several different revisions at this point, but that's the actual rule set that we're using for Empire of Rust. And it's effectively Starfinder with custom classes and custom stuff that we can use. It's a nice crunchy system. So if you do like stuff that's a little bit more rules heavy, this has a lot of options to it, and it has like all the crunch of Starfinder. Now, with that in mind, Renegade Games has just released their official rule sets, and I believe the PDF just came out like 2 weeks ago or something like that. And the actual physical book is scheduled to come out in September, October, something like that. And Renegade has the license for Transformers, for GI Joe, for Power Rangers. So they're putting out content like RPG and gaming content, not just like tabletop RPGs, but like board games and like supplements like that for it as well. So right now we're still using the rule set that we put together for with Starfinder and Metamorphosis combined together. But in the future, once the Transformers RPG of the official one comes out, we might switch over to it, or we might do a couple of like one-shot games with the official rule set. We haven't quite decided yet, but yeah, that's the actual rules that we're using for it. And it seems like the new one that's coming out is a little bit more stripped down, a little bit more simplified. So I'm kind of glad that it went that direction, because I was a little scared that once the official one came out, it would be so similar to what we put together that it's like, okay, why bother using the one that we put together? Because we put a good number of hours, like all of my players here, refining and adjusting the rules that we're using. And when I took a look at the PDF for the official one, it is a very different feel, and I'm very glad for that too, because it does have a much more distinct sense between each of them.
Now, pure speculation. Do we think that once this book officially releases and subsequently would be made available for purchase in a digital format like Roll20 or other virtual tabletops, do we think we're going to see more crossover within the diehard Transformers fandom and then the people who enjoy themed tabletop RPGs?
Oh God, I hope so. I mean, the tagline for Empire of Rust is the world's first and only Transformers RPG podcast, but I don't want that to be the case. I want there to be a bunch of different things that, because I want to be able to like listen to and just be able to enjoy, listening to like a gaming podcast or watching like a gaming series that I don't have to do all the work to put together.
Because for someone like me who, despite growing up in the 80s, did not ever really get into any of the American cartoons of that era, and I think that's just strictly upbringing.
You're into Voltron. I get it.
No, but I did play Voltron in an RPG once, quite literally. And if I told you I was the fire limb, would you be surprised?
Nope.
Uh,
Ange the Red Lion. Who could have guessed that?
But that gets into yet another story of dumb things I've done in RPGs over the years.
That could be its own special series.
The saddest thing is I probably could do that and just have different people from each of my different groups on the, but I digress. The point being, something like Transformers with its own fandom, like I'd want to play, I'd be curious about a role-playing system, but at the same time, I wouldn't want something so crunchy that someone who's not as familiar with Transformers couldn't enjoy it.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that the new one that's coming out now, the Renegade Games one, is good for this, because it really does feel like a lighter kind of a game. I don't know if you've actually taken a look at the Essence 20 system that Renegade put together, but that's their D20 system. And like I said, it's a simplified, stripped down version of like really more complicated systems. So I think if you're looking to capture that kind of like cartoon experience, I think the upcoming game is a really solid option for that. Same thing with the G.I. Joe and the Power Rangers one. If you were really into those as a kid and you really wanted to play something getting in that universe, I think that both of these game systems are really good for that kind of like, hey, we want to play in the cartoon. We want to see what, we want to do all of that.
And from what I'm seeing as somebody who is fairly new to the world of RPGs, as a sports fan, a lot of us grew up, wishing we could throw that winning touchdown in a Super Bowl or a home run in a World Series or something like that. And the world of RPG
Totally.
seems like it's a logistic way of being able to recreate some of your favorite childhood moments from cartoons, movies, things of that nature.
Someone once said this to me, and it stuck with me. Someone once told me that fantasy sports is literally nothing more but RPGs for jocks. Because it's the same, basically, it's the same number crunching, the same mechanics, basically. It's just you're doing it with a board of athletes, per se. And it's real life stats as opposed to pure and total fantasy.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me.
And Michael, we were talking before the show. You had said you'd listened to a couple of our podcasts that are up around, and Faye was one of the ones you listened to, and you seemed surprised when I said that was the first RPG I've ever really been a part of.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is partly just me as well. I mean, I've been like RPGing and been gaming for many years now. So when I hear someone is like, "Hey, this is the first one that you've ever tried," it strikes me as just so strange, because everyone that I know has gamed for, I think, a minimum of 8 years. Which I know it's I'm in a little bubble here, so like everyone I know.
I think that's the company we keep.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. It's a bubble, and that's all it is. And
that actually just gets into that ultimately is the story of how I got introduced to you in the first place.
Yeah. And yeah, so when you say like, "Hey, this is like the first time I've ever played an RPG," it just like it blows my mind. It's like this is the first one. Okay, cool. Let me ask you, what did you think about RPG gaming in general, with that being your first experience?
I had watched podcasts and other streamers who do RPG stuff.
Right.
A gentleman who's been a guest on the show multiple times, Douglas Shute from Victory Conditions Gaming, does a lot of talk about tabletop gaming and things of that nature. That's one thing that he's really big on. And Wednesday nights on their on the Victory Conditions gaming channel, they will do occasionally live playthroughs of RPG. So I've seen a couple of them. So I had an idea of the mechanics, and it seemed kind of neat to watch others get into these characters and to try to, kind of get drug along on the storyline, like you said, where you didn't have to participate or do anything. It was fun just to kind of watch it, which piqued my interest more and more the more that I was watching it. And I'd been wanting to try it for a couple of years now. It just so happened Jay Morris, who's the creator of Faye, is a very good personal friend of ours. And when he created the game and we had talked with him about it on and off a couple of times I'd been on the show, we were like, it might be fun just to have a live playthrough. And so we were able to set that up. And thank you to Douglas Shute, who sent me some dice as a gift to get me more kind of the nudge of, no, start tabletop gaming. This is actually fun. And then
I did, and I didn't help with that because that's one of my things. And then at one point I told him some of the character builds that I've done, like I've taken anime characters and built them as D&D characters for various one-shots. And
then being a veteran of the con scene, you could almost say, where since starting the show, we minus pandemic years, so minus 2020 and 2021, we were averaging about 10 to 15 cons a year when living in Mass.
Wow.
Coming up, I'm going to be going to con number 10 this year in a couple of weeks. Surprise, everybody. Anime-Zing Radio is going to be at Colossal Con East as press covering the convention this year. We just got the acceptance email Friday night. So looks like I have another con we're going to that I wasn't fully expecting.
Congratulations.
Sadly, I will not be joining that trek, as the Friday of Colossal Con East, I have a concert that I will be attending in Foxborough, Massachusetts that I bought tickets for in 2019. Reschedule that particular concert was original scheduled date was September 2020. It's been rescheduled like 3 times.
Yikes.
And
they have not. This is their first time in the U.S. in like 8 or 10 years.
What band is this?
Rammstein.
Rammstein, right? Okay. Yep.
And getting back on the convention kick, we go to a lot of different types of conventions. So I've been seeing tabletop stuff constantly. Earlier this year at Vermont Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo, the gentleman, we were lucky enough to have a table, did some live streaming, and promoted a lot of the other vendors that were around us. One of the vendors who we were promoting was kind enough to give my daughter her first set of RPG dice.
Awesome.
And of course, she had to choose purple because that's one of her favorite colors.
As you do.
I have not opened this or used these at all. These are her dice for when if and when she wants to start playing and learning. She's only 4, so she's got some time. But being around the group of people that we're normally around, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before Ange has her sitting at a table.
It's actually
starting
really
up the next generation.
Nice. It's actually really easy to jump into like one-shot games, because usually at cons, if they have any kind of gaming presence, they'll be running just a couple of one-shots here and there for various systems. So like if you like whenever you're at a con, I get that you're there as press and you have other things on your plate to do. But usually you can sign up for like a 1-hour session, just say, and they'll run you through just a quick little adventure. It's like, hey, you know what? You all meet in a tavern, and there's a troll over here. He's causing problems. What are you going to do about it?
And it's just having played and run some of those, they're all self-contained, designed for anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, depending on what you sign up for. And they can be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Because I totally get it, that depending on where you are, it can be very hard to find a group to latch onto and to start playing with. And even if you find a group, there's no guarantee that you're going to mesh very well with all the people there. And, you might end up having a bad time for it. So there's a lot of like nitty gritty kind of stuff that needs to happen in order to have a good time with a good group. But I still, I mean, I'm sure Ann just told you plenty of times, but I would highly recommend, giving it a shot, because there are so many systems out there, and some are very heavy, like rules crunchy, stuff like Pathfinder, Starfinder, stuff like that. And then you have like the lighter systems. So
It really, for anybody who likes stories, and in general, I'd say it's all about finding the right group and the right system. Because I've
Totally.
tried a bunch. At one point, I had a GM who literally hated Dungeons and Dragons, refused to run it. So we did literally everything but. And subsequently, it led to a lot of interesting some of my best dumb things I did in role-playing games come from that era.
Doug, let me ask, what's like, out of everything that went on during Faye, what were the parts that you liked the most out of it? Because I think that will tell you, give you a very clear indication as to like what you like in tabletop gaming.
I kind of liked the fantasy aspect of it, but
Okay.
then again, it almost ties into this type of anime that I like. I like the fantasy. I know I'm isekai trash, and Ange picks on me all the time. But I like the fantasy isekais. I like the world of fairies and dragons and stuff of that nature. Maybe not so much harem. Yeah, who doesn't like having a harem?
God damn it.
The DGen comes out. We didn't leave it all out. When I know you've heard me reference Wednesday night quite a bit, Michael. We did a Smash or Trash special where Casey selected 18 random characters for us to decide whether we would smash, trash, or cuddle. And they were mainly characters from anime movies. Once we went through all 18, we did get into, I put up a VTuber and some game characters and things of that nature. Actually, no, she had a video. She had a Genshin Impact character up there too, so she did go video game. Of course, Genshin because it's popular. So the DGen really came out. We brought one of our longtime listeners, Mario, joined Darren and myself for the show, and then we had people in the chat who were interjecting what they would do with said characters. So that's basically what happened Wednesday night. That's a YouTube exclusive. No, you won't find that on any of the streaming.
And
because that's more visual.
Given the nature of the debauchery, I'm going to leave that alone and not put the audio for that up on, because I don't feel like dealing with content labels.
It's definitely an 18 plus.
But I've seen YouTubers put out worse, even without age restrictions.
Agreed.
But she's talking about editing to put up on like Spotify and some of the app streaming sites.
The audio only versions, and I don't want to deal with that, so I'm not gonna.
That's okay. The Wednesday night stuff is YouTube exclusive content, pretty much.
Yeah, not to say we don't want to get demonetized, even though we're not even monetized
yet.
We will be.
Eventually.
We would be if we'd have done this 8 years ago.
I might not have to work 2 jobs if I'd done this 8 years ago, but at the time of doing this, I was part of a small network called AZR Radio, and I was co-host on 2 other shows at the time. So this was my 3rd show of the week when I started this up.
Ooh, that is a full production schedule right there.
And I worked 1 full-time job and a part-time job at the time.
Yikes.
And still had Wednesday nights was Crossing the Void Radio co-host. We were Pop Culture Paranormal. Friday nights I was co-host on a full paranormal, and then after 6 months of planning, I started this show, so it was a Sunday night anime pop culture, which I have no regrets of starting this show. It has gone above and beyond what I ever thought it would do. I'm sure you kind of feel that way with the shows that you're a part of. When you first started the Transformers RPG podcast, I'm sure you didn't expect it to go as good as it has.
Yeah, it certainly has taken on a bit of a life of its own, and I am extraordinarily picky with how it sounds and how it turns out. So, like as time went along, I'm just adding more and more stuff to it, more music for the background, more sound effects for everything that's going on. So it has turned into a little bit of a beast. Thankfully, I only put it out, or we only put it out every 2 weeks, so it's not a.
So that's a true bi-weekly show.
Wait a second. If that's bi-weekly, then what's bi-monthly?
Bi-monthly is twice a month. Because bi-weekly does not necessarily
mean, because you could put 3 episodes out in a month, depending on what day of the week the episode coming out falls on.
Oh, right. I see.
Kind of like September for me is technically a 5 paycheck month because I get paid on Fridays. There's 5 Fridays in September, so I get 5 paychecks.
Yeah.
So if you were doing it bi-monthly, you would only get 2 episodes out, not 3 if they dropped on the Friday.
The more you know.
Yup.
This is where you need like that reading rainbow sound effect.
Andrew, put that in post-production.
My experience with video editing is extremely limited, and it is a nightmare.
I have no knowledge of
early
editing.
days. Now we're talking 2007-8 era, using a cracked version of Adobe Premiere. It was on a computer that should not have been running Premiere.
Cracked like you just cracked it in half?
But
she wanted to.
I threatened to throw that tower out the window I don't know how many times. Let's just say the computer was running Windows XP.
The threats must have gone over really well.
I did not have a good experience with Premiere, but that was also quite some time ago.
Actually, just
around that same time, I was messing with it too because 2 of my classes in middle school, multimedia design and digital media, we had projects in both Adobe Flash and Premiere. So we actually had to make our own music video in Premiere, if I recall correctly. So we had to take a song and do our own music video for it, using just various images and transitions and whatnot.
I have not touched Flash in forever, and I think I'm better for it too.
I hear him say back in middle school. I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. You were back in middle school, man. I feel old.
I think we all do.
I chose not to engage that one.
Let's see, I was in middle school, 14 years ago.
I was in middle school from 88 to 92.
Middle school, I'm going to leave as undefined because 9 years of Catholic school and Catholic's 8th grade ended in 96.
We're talking middle school, like junior high kind of stuff?
I think
like 7th, 8th grade or something?
Yeah, for me it was 5, 6, 7, 8 was middle school for me.
For
6,
me-
7, 8 was mine.
For me, it was just 7 and 8. So weird that like there's so many differences like throughout the country for that.
I have to say, here it's K through 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12.
See,
Yeah.
and
For
then
me, it was 1 to 6, and then 7 and 8, and then 9 to 12.
and Catholic school was K through 8, public school 9 through 12. So
And for me, it was elementary was K through 4, middle school was 5 through 8, and then high school 9 through 12.
So
Really?
you got an extra year of torture because middle school was hands down the worst set of years for me.
Oh yeah, me too. Middle school sucked.
The schooling in the city I was born at was
You
the
know what?
worst.
I
High
think
school was probably my best.
I think that gets into that awkward age that nobody enjoys.
Probably.
If anyone had a good middle school experience, write in.
We would love to hear about it.
Because
If you remember anything about middle school, let us know.
see, that gets lumped into Catholic school for me, and that was just awkward.
Damn, Doug, I think you're right. I don't actually recall anything from middle school.
See, I will say
Black hole. That's all it
I
is.
will say that the Catholic school girl skirt that I had to wear for 7th and 8th grade is actually similar enough to what you see in some school animes.
I would believe it.
I believe it.
It is a thing. It is a thing.
Oh, you had the uniform. We had Bishop Fan Fisher College, which was a very Catholic school not far from my house, and I've seen many of the school uniform. All the girls dress the same, all the guys dress the same,
Yep.
which is very similar to Japanese school culture.
I think I just had too many public schools around where I live because I never really saw anything like that.
Yeah, same here. I had a Catholic school. Damn, it was like a good half-hour, 45-minute walk from like where I grew up, and that was the only private school in the town. And even then, I don't think they required uniforms.
I hated wearing uniforms.
Oh, I'm sure.
I hate having to wear like business casual when I go in the office, you know?
I'm lucky. I don't have to worry about like wearing business casual or anything like that anytime. I have a t-shirt and pants that I wear I work as a mechanic in a dealership. And my second job is pizza delivery, so I don't have like any major uniform I have to wear. It's more like just the company logo shirt for the pizza and for the dealership.
I suppose that all depends on like where like what company you're working for. Like if you work for like a Domino's or something, like they have like the full on like, hey, this is the uniform you're wearing. Screw you.
It's ironic you say that because it is Domino's. All I really have to wear is the hat and the shirt, and black pants of any type as long as there's no logo. You could even wear shorts.
Oh, that's nice.
And black non-slip shoes.
That's a very progressive Domino's then, because yeah, the one I got around here, it's full on uniform. It's just top to bottom.
I have to say for us, it was management for the longest was black or tan pants with the management shirt and management hat. Well, excuse me, the hats were all the same. It's just the shirts that were different. And for the longest, the crew had the shirts, and then it was blue jeans. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, they switched it to where they were wearing the same black pants as the managers. But aside from that, the shirts stayed the same for the most part, and just dark belt, hat or visor, and non-slip shoes.
I worked at a Target for a few months, and actually, no, I think it was closer to a year.
I was
yeah,
gonna say, I thought it was a little longer than that.
I
I
only
know,
worked for Target for 1 month, but
I know, I went through one Christmas season, but I didn't go through the next, so it was less than a year. I know that.
Fair. That just happened to be the point at which I think I knew you.
Yep. And they had the red shirt and the khakis. And while I was there, that was the defined uniform. But after I left, they switched to like, hey, any kind of red shirt, and then jeans, pants, whatever.
yeah, that's how it was when I worked there. Just as the pandemic started, I was working for Jiffy Lube. They shut us down. 1 week later, I started at Target. Was there for a month until I got into the dealership.
Nice.
The whole time of that transition, I had been approved to go to the dealership, but because of the pandemic, they had to wait for things to start opening up again before they actually brought me in.
And my job is a landscaper. I have no uniform.
That must be so nice. Well, the uniform part, not the working in 90-degree heat part.
Oh, 90-degree heat. That would be nice.
Oh man.
He's down in the Carolinas. He's dealing with triple digits and high humidity.
Oh God. Yeah, I don't envy that.
His best moments are when he slips into the pool. And
that is yet to happen. But I have had several customers be like, "Hey, if you want to jump in the pool while you're here, I will not say a word." I'm like, I will keep that in mind.
That is nice. That's great.
I hate mowing around pools though.
That whole business casual bit is what is required for me currently, and that's fine.
Now, jumping back on topic of the Transformers and everything, I'm
You
curious.
can't force us back on topic.
I know it's weird. We're on topic. I feel like this is, a bad carbon copy of the Trash State podcast, where it's three guys who say they talk anime and then maybe get 30 seconds of it in, and it's usually a JoJo reference.
I was gonna say Genshin Impact counts as an anime, right?
I don't think they officially have an anime yet.
I'm being a wise ass, knowing how much they've talked about Genshin Impact or giving each other shit about Genshin Impact,
especially Giga.
Of course, because how can you not? You're Giga. Like, that's to be expected.
But with all the figures you have behind you, how many figures in total do you think you have?
So I actually have kept track. God, I sound like such a nerd now. I actually do keep track of what I buy, specifically because I don't want to spend too much money each year for it. So I set myself up a budget. I keep track of what I buy, and I know exactly like how much I spend each year on it. And I need to, because I don't want to turn into like a hoarder or anything.
What's the budget?
500 or so is usually like the cap for it. I will go over sometimes if there's like a con or something. Like if I go to a TF con or something, I know my budget is screwed. So
I was gonna say a budget of 500 for good God, I would have blown that at Kineticon alone.
Yeah.
That never mind.
I was really bad at Kineticon this year. Autographs alone, I think I spent close to 300 or 400.
I think my worst quote unquote year was 1,400, like just on figures. That's not counting like travel expenses to cons or hotels or what have you, but just on figures alone. And
I wish mine was that.
It does take some willpower. It really does. But yeah. Last I looked, or the last I checked, it was just over 1,200 figures. But hold on here. I sold, like, this bookcase behind me had a bunch of Armada, Energon, and Cybertron figures on it. And over the last couple months, I sold almost this entire bookcase worth of figures. It was like 180 figures, and I'm still over 1,000.
Good God. Like
Oh,
I said, I got to step. Although I might be able to get over 1,000 figures just off the Love Live collections.
I'll rotate my camera over so you can actually see like the
What do you
bulk of
think,
it over
Darren?
there.
I'm impressed, but well, never mind.
Nope. It is actually impressive to see in person. I remember one of the first times I was there and saw it set up in person. It was quite impressive.
You know, it's a very polarizing kind of thing. Like if you're into collecting or if you're into just fandom in general, a lot of people will be like, "Oh wow, this is amazing. Oh, I had that figure when I was a kid. Oh, that's really cool." But whenever like someone comes over who's just not really into it, you kind of get that like that awkward silence that, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like, yeah, this is good. This is cool. Yeah. Do you know? And then like they ask like the question like, do you know all their names? Like they're trying to engage a little bit, but it's just like they don't know where to go with that.
And I would have to say, like, I usually will have a figure of some sort up during the show, but I'm also, because of getting to interview and talk to so many voice actors, I've gotten really big into getting autographs. And you heard me mention at the start of the show, our sponsor, Home Circle Media, we bought.
Get it right.
Yeah, I saw a show by Rock. It was getting tongue-tied. But this is one of the officially licensed art books that I bought from them. All in Japanese, but what Kineticon had to get autographs from many of the members who were in Show by Rock. So getting people like Jade Saxton and Don Bennett and J. Michael Tatum and Brandon McInnes and
At this point, I think how many cast members are you missing at this point? Not many.
Oh no, I'm missing a lot. The only Plasmagica autograph I have is actually here with Caitlin Glass. Oh no, I'm sorry. I also have Monica Riala and a Moa piece that Casey did. But I do not have Cyan, the main character from Plasmagica. This right here was Brandon and J. Michael Tatum's characters. The cool thing is Brandon, voice actor of this character, can read and speak Japanese. So he actually read some of the book to me. So I could understand some of the stuff that was going on because he had never seen this before. So that was kind of neat to be in his autograph line. I was the only one in his line. I always feel bad when he's tabling beside Tatum because Tatum will have 1,000 people and Brandon will have nobody.
Oh.
And Brandon is a very talented voice actor and in his own right. So if you ever see them at a con, definitely go meet Brandon. He is an awesome, awesome guy.
That reminds me of the experience I had at Boston Fan Expo a couple weeks back. There was a ton of comic artists and writers, but as you can imagine, the amount of there was this clear distinction between the famous ones and the more indie producers. So all the famous ones had lines, a good 8-9 people deep, like at all times, right next to and blocking out like the table from like the little small indie developers next to them.
And you see that a lot at, sometimes it's poor planning by the convention. Sometimes they don't plan for that to happen.
Sometimes I think it is legit. The person that's doing the layout has no idea who half of them are and just goes, I'm going to put them arbitrarily and fill up the space, and then doesn't realize what happened.
That's why I give a shout out to the PucciCon staff that yes, I had to move the table, from where we were originally to the other end of the row, but they were looking out for us because our table was in voice actor row. So rather than be by the door where the line started to go down and get autographs and have a line constantly blocking our table from sight from the rest of the convention, they moved us to the end of the line. So beside us was Aaron Campbell, the last voice actor guest. So we got to hang out beside Aaron Campbell all day on
When he
Sunday,
finally got there.
which that's going to be a story next week that you're going to want to hear. Aaron Campbell joins us next Sunday here on Anime-Zing Radio. I'm sure we're going to talk about his adventure getting to PucciCon and what happened while the fun he had when he finally arrived. But definitely, we're going to leave that open for next week when Aaron joins us. But
we got put in the corner, and subsequently, once the people that collect the voice actor signatures, they had to pass us before basically getting into the rest of the artist alley, and it was actually really awesome.
I almost felt like a celebrity a little bit, just being next to the celebrities.
And
Celebrity adjacent.
and everybody coming up and talking to us. Granted, I do that anyway, but it was still kind of surreal because it's been a very long time since I've done any work with the artist alley table stuff.
Because normally at the cons, you're an enforcer, info booth, something of that nature.
That would be PAX. I'm usually running around doing everything.
And you got to see me out of my element, sitting there and promoting the show.
What do you prefer doing there, Anshik? Do you prefer like running around, or would you like to run a booth more?
If I don't have something specific I need to be doing, that's when things go bad, and then I start getting way too easily distracted.
I gotcha.
You
distracted? No.
Any of us on this show gets distracted? Never.
I thought your middle name was Focus.
Just because I drive one doesn't mean I have it.
I do have that setting. That's just a few and far between setting. But
sorry.
I do enjoy the hyperactive kind of doing a little bit of everything. Hence when I was working with friends in helping out with their artist alley table, I was the one running all the errands, taking care of literally every stupid little thing that involved leaving the table. Or Gen Cons when I worked in the card hall for AEG, I was running around doing whatever somebody told me to do. Stuff of that nature. For PAX, when I started enforcing, it was Info Booth, which was a lot of stand around, but a lot of people interaction.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to actually do a whole lot. There's not a express thing that you have to do, but with everyone coming to you and bringing all the questions to you, it's just like a constant stream of like, here's my task, and I just got to focus on that.
Like when someone comes, like in for PAX Unplugged, it was a lot of how do I get to this? How do I get to that? What time is this specific thing? All the generic stuff, but then you also get I've never done this before. What would you recommend? Which is not an easy question to answer. So I counter with, what do you like? What is the one thing that if you didn't get to do it, you'd be upset, and go from there? Because because at a convention that focuses on literally every kind of games that don't involve screens.
True.
Everyone's going to answer that a little bit differently.
And I think that's the concession of cons in general. Doesn't matter if it's a gaming con or like an Anime Boston or something like that. We've seen everybody goes to Anime Boston for different reasons. Some people are there solely for the masquerade. Some people are there for the panels. Some people are there for the guests. Some people are there just to hang out with friends who they haven't seen in a year or whatnot. So there's a lot of different reasons that people go to that. A lot of people are going, I've never been here before. And if you've never been to Anime Boston before, the sheer size of it can be overwhelming to a new person.
Yeah, like AB is not a con I would recommend as a first-time con.
That was my first ever con, was Anime Boston.
Really? Did you get overwhelmed with it? Like the moment you walked in?
I was there on a Sunday only. And this was back 2013.
Okay. I think I might have been there that year.
And the only reason that I went was because Jeremy Lee was a guest, and we had actually interviewed her. It's actually what got me to start thinking about doing AZR. Was we had a guest cancellation on Crossing the Void Radio. Talk about a big switch. We had a demonologist cancel Sunday before our Wednesday show. I randomly reached out to Jeremy Lee about being a guest. Wednesday at 1 p.m., I got the confirmation from our booking producer that everything was all set for an 8 p.m. show that night. Jeremy was coming on with us. And then she had to pack up Thursday to fly to Boston from LA for Anime Boston that weekend.
Huh.
So I wanted to go and meet her because we had just spent time talking with her on the Wednesday. And
The irony is, I think Anime Boston was my first as well.
See, my first con was, oh man, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was more of just like a big dealer room thing than it was like any actual like real convention. I want to say it was the Great American Comic Con, and it was a comic, sci-fi, and not television. I don't think it was. No, it was anime. Yeah, it was. It was comic, sci-fi, and anime. It was at one of the older convention centers in Boston, and yeah, like I'm trying to remember, like just what it was. I think it might have actually been more of like a one-time thing, like just like this big like expo or something that came there, because it didn't come back the next year.
Like something like Bayside Expo Center.
Yeah, that actually sounds very familiar. I think it might have been there.
Because now I'm dating quite a bit, because I don't think that's existed since before the BCEC.
No, it certainly hasn't. And I think that was my my first con. And again, like I said, it wasn't even like a real convention. It was just a giant dealer room with a whole bunch of stuff. And that experience was eye-opening. Bootleg VHSs? What are these?
No, I think unless you count like the foreign language cultural stuff festivals that we did with in high school that were at Bayside Expo Center.
Mm-hmm.
I think my first real convention was Anime Boston, and I think that my first experience with cosplay was 2010.
because I remember for me driving to Quincy and taking the red line in from Quincy Station.
Because I remember one of my friends who was super into cosplay. Her mother makes all of her cosplays. We had started hanging out more, and she was like, "Come to Anime Boston with us." And I was like, well,
Sure.
okay, sure, why not? And she basically, her mom basically offered to make me a costume as well if I paid for the materials. Awesome. And I was surprised by how many people I knew from my different social groups that were there. And it was an interesting experience that year.
Yeah, interesting is a way of putting it. It was the first time I had seen like people standing in line to get autographs from someone, because there was a big sci-fi presence there, because this was, I think early 2000s. So there was still a lot of Star Trek going on. So a lot of DS9 and Voyager of
And that would also
actors were
be
there.
and that would also be the era when around the time episode 1 came out for Star Wars.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there was a fairly big Star Wars presence there. There was a ton of comics presence. I don't think like anyone super famous was there, so there was no like Stan Lees or anything like that. But like there was certainly a number of comic artists that I didn't know, I didn't recognize because I just wasn't really in that scene then. There was anime, and there was like a lot more than I had expected, and a lot of it I had no idea what it was. It was the first time I saw hentai in person, which was an interesting experience.
That's Darren's expertise.
Hardly.
just
I only pretend to know.
just on the TVs, like in the back of their booths. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is happening. All right.
Was it muted?
Yeah, it was muted.
See,
That's a fun game you can play. Just put an anime on, and the sounds coming from it have the game. Just the sounds from an anime be like anime or hentai.
now see, I actually have my now kind of to bring this flash forward, we'll call it 20 years. Anime has become so mainstream. Over the summer, I got a chance to visit my little sister in Washington, D.C. We were at this Asian food hall grabbing dinner. And,
that sounds like a very generic name, Asian food hall.
I don't remember the name of it. And we got our sushi and bubble tea and whatever else. And at the bar at the end, there were 2 TV screens side by side. One is playing a baseball game, and the other is playing Demon Slayer. Now both are on mute because the booth at the across the hall is playing K-pop music videos at top volume at a fairly high volume.
As you do.
I need better taste in anime.
I was more entertained with the fact that side by side you've got Major League Baseball and anime. Period. Like it's become that mainstream.
I'll agree with that. And to be honest, anime is kind of taken over GameStop too. Like it's very hard to go in there and not see quite a bit of anime merchandising nowadays.
GameStop.
Yeah.
Walmart, Target.
Apologies to one of my friends who's I believe the assistant manager of a GameStop, but GameStop has kind of gone very downhill in recent years.
Well, hey, they never wanted to pay you. They never wanted to pay you for used games, so they had it coming.
I mean,
They also don't want to pay their workers. So there you go.
I'm not going to say that's inaccurate, but it's one of those things. It was when, like, I don't know who remembers when GameStop bought out ThinkGeek.
The only thing I remember was when GameStop bought out EB Games because my Pokemon Emerald came from EB Games.
GameStop has bought like nearly everything, hasn't it? I mean, even like all the smaller ones like Software, etc. Funko, was it Funko Land?
I don't remember.
Probably.
Probably.
But it's GameStop has become less about the games and more about the merch.
It's
Very
turned into
true.
Newbury Comics.
It's become what Suncoast. It's turning into Suncoast.
Which is not a good thing.
Wait, Darren, do you have Suncoasts down there?
We used to. It went from Suncoast to FYE, and then the malls started closing down, and
Same.
I had one in the mall, and unfortunately, that is about to be the mall itself got torn down and is about to be redeveloped into something crazy.
Oh man.
Darren,
Yeah, the only thing that was left standing from the mall that stayed open the latest, I think, was JCPenney, Macy's, and for a while Sears.
Oh, the anchor stores, yeah.
Darren, have you ever heard of Newberry Comics
From y'all, yes.
outside of us talking about it?
No.
Okay, that actually tracks. I learned when my friend Carrie came up to visit. She's a marathon runner, has run Boston Marathon, but during that weekend, we always get together and do a girls' day. She's originally from upstate New York. I met her when I was at school in Pennsylvania. She currently lives in North Carolina. But one of the stores I took her to was Newberry Comics, and she'd never heard of it. And once she figured out what it was like, I could do all of my Christmas shopping for one of my kids in this store alone. Because one of her daughters is super into anime and the nerd pop culture.
Is this the one that you said is over there by Chapel Hill, Duke?
Yes,
UNC?
she is currently working as a nurse at Duke.
Okay.
But yeah, I knew of Newberry Comics. I'd been into. I think they had one of those in one of the bigger malls. I don't remember if it was like Warwick Mall or Providence Place or.
That's one of those I never realized because it was one of those always around where I was. I didn't realize it was strictly a New England thing until recently.
It started right on Newbury Street.
Yes, and I've been in that. I've been in that one more than once.
Same here.
Isn't that where you brought me when we walked around Boston? Was that one or?
Probably.
It had the multiple floors.
No.
Yeah, Newbury Street one doesn't have multiple floors.
No, the one with multiple floors is somewhere else in downtown.
Because I remember that it had the main floor and then a second floor up above.
Yep.
Mm.
That one might have been Haymarket.
I was actually just going to say, was that the one near City Hall? The one that closed?
The one in Haymarket is still open.
Huh.
Very limited hours.
Yeah.
That might have been Haymarket. I don't remember. But I also took you to a different anime store that had multiple floors.
Yeah, the other one you brought me to had a basement level and the first level.
Yep.
Was that the Garage Mall in Harvard?
No, this was
actual anime shop.
This was, I think, Anime-Zaka.
I think so. Not far from the Heinz.
Not far from the Heinz, because that was our starting point, and then we also did the Harry Potter store, among other random adventures.
Nothing wrong with that.
A fun little walking tour of Boston. Where the most of Boston I knew was Fenway Park and the Heinz.
There's more to it than just that.
And a small little concert venue that was not far from the Heinz by an old fire station because I saw Melanie Martinez there. But that was many moons ago. Man, we're just off on tangents all over the place tonight. This is what normally happens.
This is what normally happens. It's worse with certain people because then they just get sillier.
You're
like
welcome.
Our guest last week.
Yep.
Which, hats off to Rusty. Good guy. Love having him on the show. We just can never stay on topic because usually freight trains somewhere. It's usually a bad derailment.
Normally when you're not wearing pants.
To be fair, I'm not wearing pants right now.
I'm wearing shorts.
I'm not going to say anything.
And Darren has no proof. He doesn't use his camera.
Granted, it was actually warm and humid out earlier, so I put back on my sundress.
I've been in shorts all day because it was nice this morning, and then the humidity and heat kicked in the afternoon, and ended up having to shut the windows, turn the AC on.
As you do.
I was in uniform since 4:30 this morning up until about an hour ago. So black khakis, button up, casual button up shirt, and a hat.
Bojangles?
Of course. I don't do my stuff on Sundays unless it's absolutely warranted due to weather. Which technically I should have done one today, but I had already made an obligation to help out my old boss with a favor with his store. So I unfortunately had to push my customer into tomorrow, but no big deal. He's a weekly customer, so just adjust him back onto Saturday by cutting him this Saturday and tomorrow.
Just adjust the schedule a little bit, and you'll be right back on track.
I've had to do that multiple times this year. And the fact that he's deployed every couple of months, he's almost never home. So ultimately, so long as it gets done, he doesn't care.
And you'll never let it get to the point where it actually looks like it needs to be done.
Pretty much. And plus, I turned his yard into literally one of the best looking ones in the cul-de-sac, so there's that too. That's probably why he told me to do weekly this year.
Nothing wrong with that, though.
I just feel bad. I got it from the kid 2 doors down that has his own business too, and I did a way better job. And now I'm actually recommending that kid because I ain't got time to get to half of the ones I get recommended anymore. But he's gotten better.
As one does.
And that just means that you're gonna have to leave job 1 to focus on business 1.
Pretty much. It's really getting to that point. And now that I'm doing property management work too, and they said that there's an upwards of 200 to 300 accounts that are about to become open to us. We already have 100 and something. We're already doing 139.
So when are you going to quit Bojangles and just focus on the lawn care?
Very soon at this rate. Because we're responsible for leaves. Anyone who does lawn maintenance knows that leaves are literally the worst part of the job if you're in an area that gets no snow.
Even if you are in an area that gets snow, leaves are the fucking worst.
They suck. Michael's just nodding his head. Yep, I agree.
I live in an apartment, so thankfully I don't have to worry about doing a lot of yard work.
Same here.
You have a nice big yard, though. Well,
decent, sir.
I don't.
I got 2/3 of an acre.
That's a lot.
That is, the house I grew up on was a full acre, and
Same
I grew
here.
up having to do a overwhelming majority of said yard work, especially after my dad started. My dad always overdid it with his bad knees, and then one year threw out his back, and well, at that point, 2 teenage daughters could handle the yard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got an increase in your allowance, right?
Let's just say my sister and I fought so much that I eventually told her to leave me the fuck alone. I would do it myself because I didn't want to listen to her complain.
Ange, tell somebody that? Never.
That being said, it was basically subsequently I never learned how to cook and properly clean and all that fun stuff. I instead learned how to do play with power tools and yard work and all that.
But you can do yard work with the best of them, though.
I
I
could.
have to say, I'd hire. May not throw her on the heavy equipment yet, but I might throw her on a zero turn.
And then maintaining the pool was the other big thing.
As much fun as pools are, I would hate owning one for that simple thing. I hate maintenance on my equipment.
Maintenance, once it's set up, and this is in Massachusetts, once it's set up for the season, maintenance is easy. It's the initial setup and then taking it all apart when the winter to winterize everything. That's the hard part.
That's the nice part about me. I generally don't stop working long enough to have to winterize anything.
Like, and down there, you probably also have people that keep their pools open almost year round.
Sometimes, or at the very least, there are indoor pool facilities that people use, and I mean, it does get cold. Don't get me wrong. It all depends on the individual because there are nights where we'll go from cool 60s, 70s at night to 20, 30 degrees at night in a matter of less than a day or two.
As opposed to like a normal January where the high is 25 at best.
Is that with wind chill or?
No, that is not. That is base temperature, not even taking into account wind chill. If we're taking wind chill into account, closer to 0.
You know what the funny part is? In the summertime, we got to take humidity and the heat index into effect. In the wintertime, y'all got to do wind chill, and it's just like two polar opposites. We got to deal with the humidity in the summertime, and then y'all got to deal with the wind chill predominantly in the wintertime, and to get to escape the humidity and vice versa here.
Oh, we don't get to escape the humidity. We just don't have the massive heat index except for maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll get like a heat wave of like 90-degree weather for like a week, and like we're panting and like bitching about it for days.
About to say, we wish it would snow here in the summertime to give us something to complain about.
I maintain. I will never forget the one and only time I experienced an earthquake in Massachusetts. And everyone on the East Coast is posting about it on Facebook because on the East Coast, that's a big freaking deal.
I remember I was sitting in my house one day and I'm walking around in the office and we had stuff on top of the piano that we never used in the 20-something years I lived there. And it just started rattling and I thought, okay, my dad's moving around the house. So that was normal. And then my dad came in the room and he's like, I think that was an earthquake. And I posted on Facebook about it. And then within 5 minutes, everybody else started posting about it.
And then all of my West Coast friends are basically poking fun at my East Coast friends because I got a lot of friends scattered around California. And they're all like, you people don't know how to deal with an earthquake. And then I just retort back to my Southern California friends with, you try driving in a blizzard and then talk.
and then we throw shade at y'all for driving in a hurricane.
I've driven in thunderstorms. Hurricane, I don't think so. But
I have.
Then again, the last major hurricane I remember, the last actual major hurricane I remember in New England, I wasn't old enough to drive.
I was driving home from Western New York when that storm, the storm that hit the Jersey coast and did like a ton of flooding. Sandy, yeah. I was driving home when that happened.
30 minutes before Sandy made landfall in Cape Cod, I was at Plymouth Rock with a video camera.
Nice.
I do not remember when this was, but I know of what you speak.
That was 2012, October.
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years ago.
That long? Wow.
The only reason I know that is that's when I left my ex-wife and moved back home. And because I left in October, and shortly after I moved home, we got hit with a Hurricane Sandy, and then a couple days later we had a major rainstorm that came through. That actually, it's the first and only time I saw rain going upwards. It was that strong of winds and stuff, and destroyed part of Swiss Beach and Cremisa, my neighborhood, and the next neighborhood over in Wareham.
So October 2012, I think I just didn't leave the house. No, I remember that. I just didn't leave the house.
I knew it was coming. Was like, I'm going to see if I can get some footage of this. I'm stupid. That was immediately
post-divorce. I was living with friends, and it was basically we did not leave the house for the day of the hurricane because they were some level of paranoid.
For me, when Hurricane, I think it was Matthew, came through in 2018.
Oh.
I was working, and we were kind of waiting around for overtime to get approved because the hurricane was coming and nothing was really happening. Well, around that time, the hurricane mixed with a low pressure system.
Yep.
And stalled right over us and just southeast of us, and it was a disaster.
Yes, it was. I almost didn't make it to my sister's wedding. My sister was living at they got married it was right outside of Savannah. And I barely made it down there before the storm started.
To put it in perspective, the river that runs over the town where one of the stores I had to go to help, which is about less than a mile from the store, was within a foot of the top of the bridge. And that bridge is about 20 to 30 feet above the water on your slightly above average levels.
I also remember Hurricane Bob, but that's going back to 1991. We were moving from Attleboro to Wareham.
I remember Hurricane Bob. I remember not being in Massachusetts when it happened. I was in upstate New York visiting family, to the point where the cousins we were visiting, one of them was Bob, and subsequently he cracked jokes that he was destroying our house while we were here. And then we came home to find that our next door neighbor had taken all of our patio furniture down before the storm hit.
We had just bought a house, or my parents had just bought the house in Swiss Beach. We were moving in the process of moving from Attleboro to Wareham. We were officially living in Wareham 7 days after Hurricane Bob decimated Swiss Beach. And when I say decimated, 4 houses were in the middle of the street in different locations in Swiss Beach alone. One of the houses that was in Swiss Beach was seen floating down the Cape Cod Canal. And there was probably 50 plus foundations left of homes that had been destroyed. We were very fortunate. We only had some tree limbs down, and our neighbor's fence had been blown down behind us. Our neighbor down the street, which literally was 3 houses over, but the road curved and went downhill, he lost, I think it was close to $150,000 worth of Lionel in his basement because it flooded. And we didn't have any of that. So that was to see the destruction that Hurricane Bob caused in Cape Cod was unbelievable, especially in the early 90s where I'm still in middle school.
The hurricanes that are most talked about around here, when I was alive, is Fran, which happened a few months after I was born, and then Floyd, which caused major flooding about 3 years later. And then after that, really haven't had a hurricane to do much. We had Hurricane Isabel hit the coast in 2002, 2003, I think, as a Category 4. And that was the last one I remember really doing much of anything aside from Matthew, which, like I said, mixed with that low pressure system installed in just the right spot and was a mess.
Welcome to Hurricane Talk with Anime-Zing Radio.
Yeah,
Yep.
just call
I
us
was just going to make that joke too.
Just
That's
storm
where the
chasers and
podcasters
weather
come out.
watchers.
Yep, because we do that.
That's where the podcaster and you can't was coming in, Michael. Was just welcome to.
I was going to go, welcome to Storm Talk with Anime-Zing Radio.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a new one.
But
That is a new one. We get off topic on a lot of random stuff. I think it's the first time we've gone down the hurricane path.
But
Yup.
tying it back to anime, that's something that the Japanese people would be going like, we get those fairly frequently. My friend in Japan, when he was actually in Japan, remember Matt? He talked about his time in Japan.
Yep.
I think he said in the 6 months he was there, he went through 2 or 3 typhoons.
Ooh.
Well, don't forget, Tokyo also gets a ton of earthquakes as well, which is what really started this whole conversation, was talking about earthquake.
I will say that in my 2 weeks in Japan, I did not experience a typhoon, nor did I experience an earthquake. That being
Nor-
said, it
nor-
was February.
What about North Korea? Because that also happened while he was in Japan.
This was 2018, so North Korea wasn't relevant.
He was in 2019 or 2020, I think. I think it was 2019.
I did not experience anything regarding North Korea when we were in Japan.
He said that the TVs came on automatically with a warning regarding that.
We happened to be there during the Winter Olympics, so it was literally any TV we saw was either commercials or Winter Olympics. And trying to watch the Olympics in a foreign country was just a disaster because I couldn't understand anything the commentators were saying, and there was no subtitles.
Where would we be without subtitles?
And then it was also the whole prime time is different there than it is here, and then it was an experience. That was an experience.
Getting back on topic, like, where can everybody find your podcast?
Well, you can pretty much any podcast app is going to have both Transmissions and Empire of Rust on it. So we're on all of we're on all the apps. We're on shit. What the hell are we on? We're on Amazon. We're on Spotify. Does Google still do podcasts? I think they do. Facebook is the one that doesn't anymore. So yep, Google. And so yeah, like any podcast podcatcher app that you use, you'll find it on there. If you want to go direct, you can go to transmissionspodcast.com, and you can get all the Transmission shows on there. And Empire of Rust is one of the network shows from there. I think you can actually go to Empire of Rust. No, you can't, because that was like some like rando singer's like concept album or something, and that jerk still holds the right to the URL. So don't go there. But yeah, so transmissionspodcast.com, and you can get all the stuff I work on there. And if you like seeing any toy photography, I actually post up on Twitter at Minervion, Minervion. And yeah, I'll post up like toy photos that I do with all the stuff you see behind me. And I'll post up like some of the 3D artwork that I do for my day job up there as well. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious with all the Transformers, all the different things that has gone on throughout the years with the franchise. Do you prefer the older cartoons or the more like the movies, the live action stuff?
I actually prefer. Honestly, I would say neither of those because even though G1 has done a lot of the has created a lot of the characters that are present throughout all Transformers, we're like, no one's under any illusions that the original G1 cartoon is really good. It's a toy commercial. It's a half-hour toy commercial, and that's exactly what it was. And unfortunately, it does show. So if you've never or if you haven't watched the original Transformers since you were a kid and you're thinking, hey, maybe I should try it again, I advise caution. um, just because some episodes really don't stand the test of time. uh, but if you are looking for a really good series to watch, Transformers Prime is a really good one. It's a little darker than most, but it's still a really good series to watch. And Transformers Animated is a little more kid friendly, but is still really good writing and really good kind of continuity between all the episodes. Animation is spot on both of them too. Prime is a 3D cartoon, and Animated is 2D. So if you're into any one of those in particular, yeah.
Now, have you been to any conventions? I know that there's an Optimus Prime truck that has been making the tour throughout conventions. A friend of mine who put on a convention up in Maine had the Optimus Prime truck at one of his conventions and stuff. Have you been able to see that in person to get an idea of some of these look-alike cars? I'm not sure if they can actually transform or not. I haven't seen it in person
No.
or not. But
No, they can't. Yeah, I've actually been to a couple in the last decade. Not as many as I would like, certainly. I was at TFCon in 2016. 2016? Yeah, 2016, the Chicago show. And TFCon is an interesting experience because it is not an quote unquote official convention. So you'll find a whole bunch of like third party stuff there and a lot of like fan made content there as well, in addition to official product being sold. But it's not an official like convention. I was at a TFCon last year in Baltimore, which is another great time. And I was at HasCon, the only HasCon they did. That was 2017, I think, 2017, 2018. Might have been earlier.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised Hasbro allowed the fan made TF cons.
See, that's the thing. I mean, TFCon it's just a random guy who is doing the organization and setting us up for it. So there's no official presence there. You don't find like a panel from anyone like working with Hasbro. But it's just all fan content. It's fans running panels. It's fans doing presentations. They will have like voice actors there. Like they had Peter Cullen and Frank Welker there, the voices of the original Prime and Megatron. They'll have comic artists. They'll have like a ton of people there and a ton of official like voice actors and everything. But since it's a fan-run convention, they can do whatever they want. The official ones, for example, like HasCon and the later BotCons, those are the ones where Hasbro will actually have an official presence. They'll do some cross promotions with them. HasCon was interesting. HasCon wasn't just Transformers; it was all of Hasbro's brands. So Transformers, Magic the Gathering,
which is now owned by Wizards of the Coast.
Yep, Wizards, all their stuff.
Wait, is Wizards owned by Hasbro now?
Yeah. Yep. Hasbro owns Wizards, and Wizards owns Magic and
D&D now.
D&D, thank you. Wow, why did I blank on that? Gee, shit. It's just like the biggest like RPG out there. It's like what is this again?
What is D&D? Nobody knows.
My Little Pony, Nerf, the Star Wars, and Marvel toy licenses as well. So like they had like all that stuff there, and they were showing all that off. And like what they did is, even though like the ticket price for HasCon was enormous, it was like 100 something each day. It was completely inclusive of everything you do, so you didn't need to pay for autographs. You could get an autograph from Welker or Cullen with no extra cost. You could have gotten an autograph from Stan Lee at no extra cost. At least I believe that they may have been a small fee or something, but it was nowhere near the amount he would have normally charged. So, yeah, it's kind of sad they haven't actually done that again. They moved away from HasCon to like an online event called PulseCon, which is it's like okay, sure.
Pandemic caused a lot of conventions to try the online convention experience, like Crunchyroll, and I know Funimation did it.
Some of them it works, and for some it does not.
Yeah,
and I think I paid attention to like 5 different conventions over the pandemic year, plus Crunchyroll's con. Online, some of it worked pretty well. Some of the content was good, things like that. They tried Masquerade, which I don't think an online Masquerade I don't think is a good thing. Cosplay is better viewed in person, especially if there's judging involved and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to have panels, I like the online for panels, especially like a voice actor panel where a room might only fit 200, 300, 400 people. Now you could have thousands or millions of people watching their favorite voice actors do a live panel with Q&A and stuff like that.
Totally.
But you lose out on that personal feel of being at a con.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hasbro was going to do another HasCon like before the pandemic, but they had originally decided, oh yeah, we'll do one next year, like the year after the first one, and then it was like, no, we'll do one every 2 years, and then at the 2-year mark they canceled and said, no, we're not doing it this year, and then the pandemic came up, and at that point it was like they weren't going to do anything.
Yeah.
It was really good time though. It was like a good 4 days worth of content, and it was a pretty fun time. If they ever do it again, I hope you have the chance to go.
Possibly. It all depends on work schedule, funds, things of that nature. Lord knows I'm stupid enough to be like, I probably will try to figure out how to make it work, much like I'm doing with CCE. I may give up on the Retro Game Con in Syracuse just because of going to CCE, but we'll see what funds allow.
What the heck?
But we are almost out of time. I just realized we got about 3 minutes left of showtime. Man, this show kind of flew by with all the sidetracks.
We do that.
Once again, we want to thank Michael for joining us tonight. Again, Michael, where can everybody find you for the podcasts?
Social media time. Social media spam time.
The shameless plugging section. The floor is yours.
Certainly. Well, I don't have anything particularly new. So it's, again, transmissionspodcast.com to find all of the casts that I help out with and that I work on. I definitely recommend that you take a listen to Empire of Rust. We are at episode, what's the current release one? 83, 84? So quite a bit on that one. And we just hit episode 500 for Transmissions. And 300 for Alt Mode, the second the media show for Transmissions. So again, transmissionspodcast.com, or just take a look at Transmissions Podcast in any podcast app, or an Empire of Rust in any podcast app you find. And if you're interested in giving me a follow on Twitter to see the occasional toy photo that I post up there, again, it's Minervion, Minervion. And it's right down there on the bottom.
Again, we thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. It's been a blast getting a chance to meet you and learn a little bit about I love learning about subjects I know nothing about, which is one of the fun things about doing the show and getting to meet people, and especially where you and Angela have had the connection. This is the first time we've actually talked. And so getting to learn more about you, about the podcasting side of things, and what you're interested in. I hope our viewers out there and the listeners on the podcast side, once this goes up on the apps, really enjoyed the show, because I know we touched on a lot of different subjects, took a lot of side road trips, trying to go from point A to point B, but we ended up down in, somewhere in Florida, while trying to go from New York to Boston.
Storm talk, it's what you tune in for.
It happens.
And the next episode of Storm Chasers, watch as the car gets.
No. We are not making a 90s disaster movie. We've seen enough of those.
You need to mix the two, Storm Chasers with the paranormal. It writes itself.
I don't even want to go down that road.
God.
I've seen enough paranormal disasters. I think they were called Ghost Hunters. No, I'm sorry, no, Ghost Adventurers. Not Ghost Hunters. Taps was actually the good one. Ghost Adventurers, that was the nightmare one when they first came out. But that's a whole nother subject.
That's another show in and of itself.
And on that note, Ghost Stories was just the train wreck of everything.
Oh, Ghost Stories was a good anime.
Define good.
It was a good anime because it broke so many rules, and it would be so socially unaccepted if it aired now. And the fact that it was 100% improv by the crew, that's what makes it good. Knowing the history behind Ghost Stories from the people who worked on it, and knowing that they all just Ghost Stories is one of those animes that is so non-PC. They poke fun at every race, religion, sexuality. Doesn't make a difference. They poked fun at everybody.
And it's not something that could get made today. And at least one of the voice actors in it said so at Anime Boston during his panel this year.
Yes. And I've also heard that from other voice actors who are well-known voice actors who are part of the creation of it. So definitely, if you're not easily offended, if you're not a fluffy person, check out Ghost Stories, because it is actually quite entertaining.
All because Japan said break even on it.
On that note, we hope everybody tunes in next Sunday when we are joined by Aaron Campbell, very talented voice actor, as you've heard us talk about. He had some adventures going to Buchicon a few weeks ago. We'll also have, hopefully, one of the winners that we select that has been selected. I've reached out to 2 different people and heard nothing back, so I'm going to reach out to one other person. Otherwise, we may not have a winner to join us for the guest co-host spot.
Which would be a sad time, but
But I think I know who the last person that I'm going to try is. So,
as it should.
It's me.
You'll be sleeping by the end of that one. I know you.
Spoilers.
But also this Wednesday we'll be doing something probably like a short half-hour, 1-hour show, just talking random nonsense. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to be there? But definitely keep an eye out for our Wednesday night shows where we do random things, different game shows, some 18+ content. I think most Wednesday night shows are probably going to be 18+, because probably be anything goes. So hopefully we see you all here on Wednesday. And of course, next Sunday with the big show with Aaron Campbell. Hope everybody has a wonderful week. Keep watching the anime. Stay nerdy, folks. We'll see you right here again for more Anime-Zing Radio here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
See you next time.